People who have been on game shows, what are some things that watchers don't know about? Okay, so I was on The Price is Right. The stage is much smaller and the colors, including Bob's makeup, were much brighter than what you see on TV. They took my social security number in case I was picked for tax purposes. Everyone said to act enthusiastically to get picked, but I couldn't fake it. Not my personality. Despite that, though, I got picked. I must have been wearing a good outfit for TV or something. I ended up winning a lot of money on Palinko. And yes, the spinning wheel is heavy. Edit. No, I did not kiss Bob. They kinda suggested you do it, but no way I was going to. I just wanted to get off that stage and call my mom. Next story. I won the showcase Showdown on The Price is Right back in 2012. The day is long. Started standing in line at around 6 a.m. Then you're put through quick interviews. They ask what's your name, where you're from, or what you do, like your work. I have no idea why they picked me because my answers were pretty unenthusiastic, as I was just happy to be in the audience. My guess was that I was a young 23-year-old woman with okay legs. You truly don't know if you will be called to come on down until the moment of. And yes, the wheel is heavy. After the show, you're pulled into a back room to discuss prize acceptance, paperwork, and taxes. You also sign an NDA declaring you will not tell others the outcome of your episode, which airs 3 months after filming. The prizes are truly nice and high quality, though. I won 3 international trips in the showcase, and the locations and accommodations were incredible. Next story. I was in the audience for Deal or No Deal once. There were a couple of running gags that didn't make the TV cut. They also took the secrecy of the briefcase contents very seriously. One of the briefcases got dropped and it opened. I don't think anyone saw the number inside, but that was enough for every one of them to be taken back behind the stage and re-randomized. Next story. So I had a cousin win my country's version of Survivor. He finished the final competition about 45 minutes before everyone else, but the producers cut it in a way that made it seem like he barely won with just a few inches ahead of second place. But I guess that's to be expected with reality TV. Then, another fun fact, the host of the show tried to get all of the women to gang up and get my cousin voted out. And it was so bad that the producers had to step in and tell him to stop. That part didn't get aired, of course. Also, the host of the show, who was a respected TV host in my country at the time, was a raging alcoholic during the whole trip. Edit. Another thing I remembered was that they had to halt the shooting of the show and get the contestants into hotels on the mainland for around 2 months because a lot of the people got hit by some kind of virus or bacteria that made a lot of them extremely sick. So, I'm not surprised to hear that the host is like an alcoholic and has a drinking problem. I feel like that's a thing you see on a lot of TV shows sometimes. I wonder where that comes from. It's like art is based off of real life. Oh, alcoholics. Anyway, next story. So, I've been on 6 game shows from 1983 until around 1997. They mostly shot 5 episodes each day, so it's a long day. They start with reviewing rules, your wardrobe, and signing contracts, etc. Eventually, you play practice games on the actual set. Food is provided all day long. Generally, episodes were shot 3 months before airing, and I didn't receive any money or prizes until 1 month after airing. Of course, you pay taxes on any prizes or cash. You can refuse any well. I refused a trip to Australia, and most travel prices are for off-season, and the window was only 2 months. My wife would have been 8 and 9 months pregnant in that window, so she did not feel like being on such a long flight. And not what you asked, but other times I've posted this on Reddit, and I got asked what shows I was on. I'll only mention the 3 where I won: Catchphrase, Now You See It, and The Weakest Link, the daytime version. Next story. I was in a show where someone in the audience blurted out the answer before I could. They stopped production, removed the audience member, took me off stage, reset the entire round, and started over. The kicker is, I knew the answer anyway, and the new round had a category I knew absolutely nothing about. Audience member cost me $30K. Next story. So not me on the show, but my dad. In the early days of Countdown, the UK show, during the Richard Whitley era, so mid-1980s, if the numbers game was a particularly tricky one, they weren't solved by Carol Vonderman immediately at the end of the round as portrayed on TV. Rather, she would work on it as the program continued and would record her solve later, which would then be edited in to make it look like she had solved it there and then. If it was a really difficult one, then Carol didn't solve it at all. It was a behind-the-scenes guy called Michael Wiley that worked it out, and then Carol would present it as though she had solved it herself. Next story. Tried out for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire years ago. Had to be in Manhattan first thing in the morning to take a test in a room of maybe 50 people. They quickly grade the test while asking who had the longest drive-in, who's the youngest/oldest. Results come in, and probably 35 people are out the door not scoring high enough. Myself and everyone who stayed back are told we would meet with the producers of the show. Pretty sure they were just interns, and our pictures were taken. During the interview, I talk about being a veteran and try to sound interesting. I mentioned the only question I struggled with was what cosmetic company is Halle Berry a spokesman for. We wrap it up, and I'm told I would be notified if I would be put in the contestant pool. A week later, I get the no thank you card. Oh, and on my way to the train station, every other picture is of Halle Berry and effing Revlon. Next story. Me, I was on Let's Make a Deal. The camera lenses tend to make the studio look larger than it is in real life. I was surprised how much smaller it felt sitting in the audience. They do a group interview thing before the show starts to help people pick and weed out the ones that won't make for good TV. They have costumes there that you can pick from, but if you bring your own, you're more likely to get picked. They'll make you ride a bus to the studio though, so make sure your costume can fit in the seat. I learned that the hard way. They tell everyone to stay smiling and hyped the whole time because if they picked you from the interview process, they can change their mind at the last minute before Wayne calls you if they think the cameras will pan to you and you look like a sourpuss. This makes everyone there stay really energetic the whole time, which I thought was clever. Lastly, I know this makes me sound like a psycho, but Wayne Brady smells amazing. OP, do not apologize. Wayne Brady looks like he smells amazing, okay? He just exudes confidence and scent via the television screen. I don't even like him like that. I'm just saying he looks like a good smelling guy. Anyway, next story. So, I was on Slime Time Live as a kid in the early 2000s, back when they filmed it at Universal Studios Florida. They picked the contestants that are going to play in advance, and then put us in the crowd and announced us on air and told us to act surprised. The host was a jerk and wouldn't talk to the contestants off of air. The two co-hosts were a lot nicer though. Also, the slime is cold and takes multiple washings to get out of your hair. Next story. So, I was in the green room when one of the other episodes was being taped, and we had a CCTV with the live feed in it. On a couple of occasions, the contestant in the bonus round didn't even come close to winning the bonus round, so they retaped the entire bonus round to make it look like they almost won. Then, on a different show, they were having audio problems during one wrong answer I gave, so they had to re-record me giving the same wrong answer about 5 times. After one take, I turned to the live audience and I jokingly said to him, "Gee, you guys think I would get the answer right one of these times?" Next story. So, I was actually on Cash Cab one time. They actually select and pre-screen people under the guise of a separate show. They use this to gauge your knowledge and tailor the questions to your ability. As an example, one of my questions was, what large archipelago is made of over 15,000 islands? Another team on the same episode got, what social media platform has a blue F as a part of their logo? When you show up for the other show, they tell you there is an issue with the location and you need to take a cab to another site. And up pulls the cab and blammo. Yes, I'm fully aware I mispronounced that word, by the way. Archipelago? Markalabo? Snuffleupagus? I don't know how to say it. Anyway, next story. So, I was on Inkmaster, which, not exactly a game show for human canvases, involves a prize, so I'm posting it. The show was set in New York City and even had city backdrops in the opener, but it was filmed in a studio in New Jersey. The artists, they all had personas to play, selected by the producers, and did their best to abide. Most of the judges barely stuck around set. They'd filmed their stuff in quick succession, then left, and they edited to make it seem like they were always there. The art was real though, obviously, but there was much more time than depicted spent on deciding. I remember it taking forever to film the skull pics though, because we had to be given the skills with the name on the bottom. Film that, wait, then read the name slowly. It took 2 days to film a 30-minute episode. All in all, it was an amazing experience. Next story. So, I was on Jeopardy in 2021, then again in 2023. It was literally the most fun of my life. Plus, I got lucky and won over $50,000. When they asked me back in 2023, I had to turn them down because I won't cross a picket line, and it broke my heart. Fortunately, I got the text again after the strike was over, but that time I lost. Before I went, my self-talk was, don't worry about winning, all things equal, you will lose. Just don't bring shame upon your family by betting or answering stupid. My one idiot moment, though, came from leaving the verb out of an FJ answer and asking, who Nathaniel Hawthorne? I took quite a bit of crap for that one. Next story. In the early 80s, a friend's family got to be on Family Feud, and I got invited to be in the audience. Among many revelations to a kid who'd been raised on the TV, Richard Dawson was way more creepy in person than he appears on TV. and he had to stand behind the set pieces and chain smoke in between takes. It was so odd to see how he could just turn himself on and off like that. On camera, a totally different person, warm and friendly. Off camera, sullen and hungover looking. He did not look like a happy man. What a trip that was. Next story. I was on Love Connection decades ago. They did keep us separated from the guys we dated before we revealed if we wanted a second date. They chose 3 guys and you have to pick one to go out on the date with. Plus, they give you a long list of things you can't do on the date, like go to the movies, and they want you to interact. They give you notes of what to say based off of what you told them after the date. Chuck Woolery had cue cards, and it appeared he was looking at you, but he was only looking at the cue cards. Next story. Wasn't quite a game show, but some friends and I did the Red Bull flugtag in Tampa in 2008. They had an audition/application phase where you had to drop off your plans and what you were going to try to design to fly over the pier. And they chose us and about 30 other people. We had to agree to news interviews and promotions. They were set up by the marketing team. We were building our craft in my backyard, and the news came out to my home a couple of times. The day of the event blew my mind. There was hundreds of thousands of people there. It was nuts. Hundreds of boats, people in the parking garages watching. The hotels all had people out in the balconies. It was absolute insanity. They lined us up around the block like a parade, and everyone did their skit and went off the barge. It was a lot higher up than I thought it was going to be. I think it was between 30 to 40 feet off the water. It was pretty high. They gave us all our safety briefings, telling us how to tell the lifeguards on jet skis that we were okay or hurt. They kept it quiet, but a lot of people got hurt. Tampa General Hospital was just across the water from where the event was, Tampa Convention Center, and the ER had quite a few people in it from the event, including my cousin, who was the pilot. Cousin shattered his nose, broke it big time. I don't think they do that event anymore. Heard lots of people got hurt. One person broke their back too. Was super fun though. I have some videos on YouTube from the event. Next story. I was a winner on Wheel of Fortune 10 years ago. There's only one big wheel though, and they have to transport it to other taping locations if not in LA. I was, and that effort is heavy. A part of prep for the actual taping is that everyone has to practice the proper way to spin it. Left hand grips the padded rail in front of you, right hand pulls the wheel towards you, and continues the momentum to push the wheel along its spin. They tell us not to try aiming for a specific space because it's too obvious and too hard to control. Next story. So not exactly a game show, but those House Hunter shows, My Family's Old Property was featured on a spinoff. Those shows feature people who have already selected a property weeks or months before production started. These shows just feature people messing around and making up complaints about houses and then going, I guess we'll go with this one, the one that we already own. Next story. So I was on Masterminds, Tug of Words, and soon the 1% Club. I won $10K on Tug of Words, and the other 2 I did really well, but I didn't make any money. One of the things that is very surprising is how long it actually takes to shoot an episode. It's 22 minutes of airtime, but it takes a little over an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We do the commercial breaks live, but a lot of the game is just shooting reactions and doing extra takes when the game show host flubs a line. About the same amount of time was shooting the game show host rereading stuff as it was us playing the actual game. Then one thing about the 1% Club that was interesting is that they asked a question and it's silent. You have 30 seconds or whatever to answer on your iPad. Then they don't let you know if you get it right or wrong, but they reshoot the same exact scene, but the host makes jokes. They do this so you can concentrate on answering, and then they splice the 2 together later. Since that show had 100 people, it was definitely the longest shoot. It was about 4 hours. Luckily, I was in the game until the very end, so I wasn't like one of those people who missed the first question who had to sit there for 3.5 hours doing nothing. You also have to get there insanely early and wait. The call time for all 3 of my shows was like 6:30, I think, and then you maybe shoot around 11 or 12. You're pretty tired and exhausted all day because you probably didn't get a lot of sleep the night before. For me, I came up from San Diego and I had to get up at 4:30 to get ready. Finally, I'd say they actually do want you to win and they try as hard as they can to prep you to do well. They honestly want charismatic, funny, charming people to entertain. They have it in the budget for you to win. It's the advertiser's money. Also, I was in 2 different commercials, one for Tug of Words and Masterminds. That was pretty cool. I'm even on some commercial ad for some word game that has nothing to do with Tug of Words. They just used my footage from my episode to advertise a crappy app.
I've gotten tagged on that about 100 times on Facebook. And oh, that's the last thing. You don't get paid until it airs on TV, because that's where your money comes from. I did one show in October and got paid in February. If you want to check out my Tug of Words, just go to YouTube and search Tug of Words, and I'm the first video. Me and my roommate Jim won the 10 grand. So I went on YouTube and I think I found OP, so that was pretty cool. I also have to say though, I have never heard of Tug of Words or a lot of the game shows mentioned so far. I don't know if it's because they're older or they're from other countries, but I don't watch a lot of game shows, so not a lot of these are familiar to me. So I don't know if that's the case for you guys in the comments section. But anyway, next story. So I was a contestant on The Weakest Link, the American version with the main lady. It was their HS episode. What you don't see is a huge clock counting down right in front of all of the contestants. It's very nerve-wracking. Also, they told us she picks the ones that she likes, and oh boy, she loved me. So much she never made it to air, but it was so much fun. Also, none of us were random people that tried out. We were all agency kids, whether modeling or acting. All of us had representation. It helped the process with minors, so they knew we were screen tested. Next story. On filming days, you are not allowed to go anywhere alone once within the confines of the studio building. You have to be accompanied by a member of the production team at all times, including to use the toilet in order to prevent any possible chance of cheating. I was a contestant on Millionaire, and I can confirm all of the above. They also make sure you sign numerous NDAs and speak to a psychiatrist prior to filming to ensure you are mentally prepared and able for any potential fame or large sums of money if you happen to win big. Next story. My wife and I were on Let's Make a Deal a few years ago. Here are a few interesting things. It looked like Wayne Brady picked us from the audience at random to be contestants in a game, but it wasn't random. Before the show, when all of the audience is waiting in line outside, they interview everybody. They're looking for people who are enthusiastic, fun, and have great costumes. If you've seen the show, you know. My wife and I, we were enthusiastic, fun, and dressed up like mad scientists, so they picked us during the show, seemingly at random. People who come to the show who don't have costumes are given costumes from the wardrobe department. They never get picked to be contestants, though. And we won $500. Wayne Brady handed us 5 $100 bills. At the end of the show, they took them back. Apparently, they reused them for each show. I'm not sure if it was real money or not, but it looked really real. After the show, we went to a little office and they told us we'd receive a check in the mail after the show had aired. When we were playing the game, picking a number from 1 to 17, we took a long time to decide which number we wanted. When the show aired, it looked like we only took 3 to 4 seconds. They cut out our indecisiveness. By the end of the hour, nobody in the audience is cheering anymore because they aren't going to pick any more contestants from the audience. If you watch the show, you'll notice they don't really show the tired audience in the last 5 to 10 minutes. They shoot it pretty much in real time, meaning they'll shoot a segment where they pick an audience member to play a game and then give them money, and then when a commercial should be happening, the videoing pauses for just 2 minutes, long enough for the real commercials to be inserted later. They don't wait 10 minutes between segments or something. During that time, they play loud party music to keep the audience's energy up. I just remember there was a ton of legroom in the audience's bleachers too. That's because audience members have to stand up and run down the stage, and they don't want anyone tripping on someone else's feet. Next story. So, I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire 17-ish years ago. There was a lot of interesting stuff told to us by the show workers. One thing they told us was to use the Ask the Audience lifeline early. They said pretty much everyone in the audience tried out for the show, but didn't make it. As such, they told us we probably know more than them, so if it's a high-level question and we aren't sure, the audience probably doesn't know either. They also said we should listen to the audience's reactions, though. Since there was no time limit on answering questions, we should talk through the options. If we said something like, I'm kind of thinking the answer might be C, and a bunch of audience members gasp, at least rethink that option. Next story. So, my sister tried out for Big Brother a few years ago, and when they went in to do group interviews, someone that worked for the show pulled her aside and said, "Don't say anything to anyone, but you're a VIP." And we both assumed it was either told to everyone to hype them up, or told to everyone to try and stir things up. Next story. My brother was on The Price is Right many years ago, and he won a car. But you don't receive your winnings until the show airs. Unfortunately, between the time it was taped and the episode airing, the dealership that was supposed to deliver the car folded. So, he got the cash value instead, which is better because he's over 6 feet tall and would have never fit in that Kia Rio. Next story. So my dad was on Jeopardy 2 years ago. You aren't allowed to tell anyone you're going to be on the show or going to film. He told us like 2 days before the episode aired because that's when they require you to post on your social media that you're going to be on. And they ask for your social media to confirm that you do. If you don't win, you still get $5,000 for participating. My dad really wants a copy of his episode, but they charge some insane amount just for your episode, and I can't find it online anywhere, so they're on that crap. The cute thing is, my dad is Facebook friends with all of the contestants he met and played with and against, and they tag each other in support of Jeopardy posts all of the time. Next story. I've been on The Price is Right twice now. First time when I was 1984, I wore a cute outfit with heels and was super enthusiastic during the interview. Bob Barker was the host. I was called to come on down and won a tennis ball machine and tennis rackets. On stage, I played squeeze play for a jacuzzi but lost. I spun the wheel twice for a total of .55. The set is small. Then I was on the show again when I was 51 in 2016. Drew Carey was the host. I was on The Price is Right Survivor Crossover Edition. I wore my Survivor dress, yellow dress with Survivor logos of each season on the dress. I was super excited when interviewed and was called to come on down, and they paired me with Survivor Season 2 Australia winner Tina Wesson. Love her. We never made it out of Contestants Row, but they did give us each $300 for being called down. The taping took almost 8 hours for the one show. Then I was on Wheel of Fortune in 2004. As far as the process goes, they were doing tryouts for San Diego Week via the Wheel Mobile around various Westfield malls throughout San Diego County. I was selected to play a mock game, and they took a picture. I was then contacted for round 2 testing, which was held at the Marriott Hotel, as it was for San Diego Week. I wore a Padres jersey that said Hell's Bells with Trevor Hoffman's number, Padres relief pitcher. It was signed by Trevor and all of the members of AC/DC. And then I did well at round 2 testing, and we played a mock game and introduced ourselves. I didn't get a phone call for San Diego Week, but I did get a letter indicating that they wanted me as a contestant, and I would hear from them within the next 12 months. Then a few months went by when they called me and asked if I wanted to be on NFL Week, and I would be paired with Hall of Famer QB Dan Fouts. We taped in October of 2003, and it aired in January of 2004. Dan played for charity, and I played for myself. Dan and I were the big winners for the week, and I won a trip to the Super Bowl, NFL memorabilia, a trip to Mazatlan, and money. It was a great time. We taped all 5 shows for NFL Week the same day, so I got to meet such legendary NFL players as Dan Fouts, Joe Theismann, Eddie George, and Jerome Bettis. Vanna is really petite, by the way. The wheel is heavy, and they made us turn around while they put the new word puzzles up. Next story. A few memories from when my wife and I went to a The Price is Right taping. The audience members are not randomly chosen. They do a light screening while you are in line, and the people showing the most energy and enthusiasm in the small groups are usually the first ones called on stage. I think the room seats up about 300 people, and it felt very small. They alert you multiple times, do not stand up unless your name is called, so that the camera can quickly find the new contestant. A super enthusiastic woman from our screening group was called up immediately, and my wife jumped up with her in excitement. We didn't make it up, but it was a great experience. Oh, and I would have loved to see Bob, but Drew did a great job of joking around and playing with the audience during the breaks. Next story. A friend of mine was on Wheel of Fortune. The giant wheel is calibrated beforehand with each contestant to spin at a similar rate. He was contestant number 2, active duty military member, strong guy, and a little old lady was contestant number 1. After they calibrated for her, it was his turn, and he gave it a colossal zing that spent it spinning for way longer than was practical for showtime. So they changed a setting to add more friction, and his second calibration spin was him essentially going, ugh, while the wheel failed to move. They continued until they got what they wanted and moved on to contestant number 3. I found it interesting. Anyway, obviously in hindsight, but I had to put zero thought into that beforehand. Next story. My daughter taped her appearance on Jeopardy yesterday. Everything I've read here is spot on. Ken Jennings is charming times 10. He isn't perfect in his delivery every time, so during breaks he restates clues and adds additional responses for the editing crew. He also comes to the front of the stage and asks the crowd for questions. He is incredibly generous. What an experience to watch. By the way, she performed well against tough competition. She got 2 wrong answers, including a daily double. The button is hit incredibly fast by the competition. She betted all in final and came in 3rd. Still, it was a great performance. Next story. So, I was on Jeopardy in 1999. I had to pay for my own travel, accommodations, and meals. A friend of mine was on Family Feud, and she told me her travel was paid for, although she is a habitual liar, so who knows. But Alex Trebek was super nice, and talked to me in particular because I had a very Canadian last name. I lost though, and my parting gifts were a computer, which I kept, Lee press-on nails, and Centrum Silver vitamins. I declined the nails and vitamins so I wouldn't have to pay the taxes on them. While I'm disappointed I didn't win, at least I didn't embarrass myself, and I made it to Final Jeopardy. And then finally, the buzzer is a real B word, and as someone else commented, you have to wait for these little lights to finish flashing before you buzz in, or you get locked out. Next story. Spouse and I were on the Newlywed game. We always did fine when watching on TV, but when you watch on TV, you typically respond to the question as you hear it. But at the studio, you've chatted with the other couples over champagne, found some common ground, start to relate to them. Then on the stage, there's a lot of lag between when you get the question and when you actually respond. In the meantime, you're hearing other contestants respond to the same question, and that can really get in your head.
Oh, good point, Jason. Yeah, that's what I'd go with too. But anyway, we did way worse, partly because we weren't going with what would have been our instinctual responses, but what we arrived at after hearing the question and hearing other people respond and give their thought process. No coincidence that basically the only questions we got were the ones that we both got to first. Next story. Hey there, Cash Cab Contestant here. Fun facts, the destination was totally random. We were told to give the name of some comedy club in the street it was on. He only reads the question once, so you have to pay attention. For the street shoutout, we waited like 20 minutes before someone actually helped us. People either declined to help or ignored us. When you get 3 strikes, they literally kick you out and leave you, even if you have no idea where the hell you are. Ben Bailey is awesome though. Asked him if he liked driving around the city, and he responded, "No, it effing sucks." Such a fun experience, even though we lost.
Okay, I've seen like 20 seconds of Cash Cab in my entire life. They just kick you out of the cab? Is that what I'm getting? You're just in the middle of wherever and they say wrong answer, get out? That's evil. Next story.
So, not all of them are fixed. My mom randomly won a decent amount of money. She genuinely didn't even know she'd applied to be on that show, and certainly didn't even want to show up when the producers called her to participate. Eventually, they convinced her and she showed up, played, and won about $100,000. Although she had to share it and didn't really get all of that amount. It was in the late 90s, so back then it meant a lot and helped us a great deal. Next story. I was on The Price is Right a few years ago during COVID. I figured that was the best time to apply because if you got the call, you were almost guaranteed to get on. When I got called up on stage after winning Contestants Row, I basically blacked out. I was so nervous. I played the game one way, where I had to guess the price of the car by guessing if the numbers are higher or lower than what they gave me. I swear I couldn't tell you at that moment what was higher or lower than a 3 in that time, and so I looked to my best friend and sister, and I trusted them blindly. I only got one number right, but because I knew it wasn't a $30,000 Toyota Corolla, I knew I won immediately. I still have the car. They do not give the cash value, though. They also add the price of the car to your taxes at the end of the year via a $199 and sales tax, so I probably paid $7,000 for a new car. Next story. There can be some weird rules that can trip you up. I was on the NOVA National Science Quiz, which uses the same buzzer format as Jeopardy. You never noticed that nobody ever buzzes in early on Jeopardy? That's enforced. Your buzzer is deactivated until the host is done reading the question. If you press it even a millisecond too early, you deactivate it for something like 2 seconds. Might as well be forever. It basically killed me because I had a really hard time telling when he was really done. I kept pushing the button just a fraction of a second too early. Questions would be something like, what do we call the stream of particles that flow outward from the sun? I press the button and interact with the Earth's magnetic fields. And I'm like, oh my God. Next story. I was on Deal or No Deal for a friend, and while a lot of the drama is produced, the actual game is taken super seriously and governed by a ton of laws, lawyers, and NDAs. They do not reshoot anything that changes the results of the actual game, and the time spent in studio immediately before and after the show feels like a criminal investigation to ensure propriety. That being said, I had to lie to my best friend for 6 months about my lack of involvement in the show as terms of her appearance to create drama and a big surprise moment. But it was totally worth it. She won a life-changing amount of money and forgave me, but now gives me extra side-eye since she knows I'm an expert in subterfuge. Next story. Hollywood Squares here. I get to claim to be the biggest winner of the year, late 90s, because I suffered through a day of taping 5 episodes with other contestants and they didn't get to me.
They said they always had a pair of contestants in reserve, just sitting in the green room in case someone couldn't perform. I had to come back the following weekend, and they were taping for Sweeps Week, normally American Thanksgiving Week, when people are most at home watching. The prizes were so much bigger. Lexus versus Geo Metros. Tom Bergeon was the host. Whoopi Goldberg was the center square. My secret square was Debbie Reynolds for the trip. And I won the car from Roseanne Barr, long before she went mental. As others have said, California gift tax is high, but even 60% of the winnings was plenty. The producers sent me a congratulatory bromelade too. Oh, Los Angeles. Also, it was filmed on the soundstage right next to The Price is Right. I was reprimanded as we walked to set because I saw Plinko off to the side and had to go touch it. Wouldn't you? Next story. I don't think you can call it a game show, but I loved and missed GSN Live. Maybe it's close enough to fit the question. I got picked 3 times, didn't know my first question, won $50 on my second time, and $500 the third time I was on the air. You had to have a GSN account, and the show ran from 3 to 6 in the afternoon. It would reset each hour, so you had to re-enter at 3, 4, and 5. They would start calling people maybe 20 minutes before the game starts. It would be a person telling you that you are in the current pool and to stay by your phone in case you're picked. If you're called, they would ask your name and city and state. You'd also be told to have your television muted because they didn't want reverb, and it would also be bad for you as a contestant too, since you had to hear the host. You would also be maybe 20 to 30 seconds ahead of the television, so waiting to see the question on the screen could cost you time. After you were on the air, you'd get sent back to another person who would either offer condolences for not winning or congratulate you and ask you to stay by your phone, as they would call back in a few minutes to get your information. After you were on the air, you had to wait 30 days, I believe, to try to get into the pool again. They also did an event. It wasn't GSN Live on a Saturday, but it was something similar where GSN debuted 3 new game shows, and if you had an account, you could answer questions online for prizes. I got a call saying I won $100 for the online play. Next story. I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and had a question thrown out. Before going out to the set, the person getting me ready for the show told me to talk through things and don't rely on Regis because he didn't have the answers. My $32,000 question was about a book I had read, and none of the answers made sense to me, and I said that out loud. All of a sudden, a producer said, "Stop talking. Nobody talk." At least that's how I remember it. I guess they had to confer with another producer at a different location, so Regis and I just sat there. But after about 5 minutes, they took Regis to his dressing room, and I sat there in the chair with the lights dimmed. I'd say about half an hour later, the producer said they were throwing out the question because it was ambiguous. Lucky for me, because the replacement question was one I knew the answer to right away. I'm just sad that it isn't on a tape somewhere, as it was pretty exciting. Regis was sympathetic when he came back out. Also, he was very, very good at his job. He did promos in between taping the show and nailed them one take. I was also on Jeopardy about 15 years later and bombed it. Hitting the buzzer was not easy. I did get a little gossip from the person doing my makeup. She had to work on the Wheel of Fortune to fill in for someone, and she was not a fan of Pat Sajak. Next story. Went down to London for a pre-screening on a TV quiz show called Dog Eat Dog with Ulrika Johnson. They explained the rules to me, and I did a sample with a runner for the directors to view me on a monitor. Partway through, I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all. Why would you do A, then C without B, etc.? I didn't get through though. A guy who was in the same group as me did and made it onto the show to win £10,000. The show didn't last though, as it didn't make sense to the audience. Next story. Tried out for Greed years ago. Answered all random trivia questions right. Didn't get on the show, but talking to others in my audition group who all made it to the next round, one person was a regular guy like me that just tried out. Everyone else that made the next round had an agent and was trying to make it in Hollywood as an actor. So many actors are not only booked on game shows, but even in the audience sometimes. Also went to a Perfect Strangers taping one time. Comedian trying to also make it was hired to walk around through the audience between takes and breaks and tell jokes to keep the audience in a laughing, upbeat mood. Next story. The laws governing any competition show with a cash value prize are incredibly strict and stringent. Buzzers have to be calibrated and tested to the millisecond to ensure fairness. I know that in the past, games were rigged to produce a prearranged outcome, but modern-day game shows are as heavily regulated as the lottery. Okay guys, it took us a minute to get here, but I've got $1 million idea. What if we had an undersparked game show? Think about it. First question, what does the narrator narrator's name? Second question, what is the other narrator's name? And the third and final question, when did I debut on this channel, huh? Do you remember that? That was kind of rocky back then. But anyway, next story.
My wife and I didn't get called on down, but we went to a taping of The Price is Right back in March. You know how on the show they do the 3 pricing games, then the first big wheel segment, then the next 3 pricing games, second wheel segment, and showcase? They actually tape all 6 pricing games back to back, then do both wheel segments, then finish with the showcase. They only bring out the wheel once. Next story. I was on Double Dare back in 2000. We had to redo a toss-up challenge because the stagehand said we were not allowed to help each other pop the gawk balloons. However, the host on air said we were allowed to help. So of course, my parents are helping us win after hearing that. The other team listened to the stagehands and made no effort to help each other, so they felt understandably cheated. Production was stopped and we had to throw that challenge out. Oddly enough, we changed our shirts, but not our pants and shoes. So if you look closely, there was a continuity error where our pants and shoes are randomly covered in gack at the start of round 2, with no explanation as to why. Next story. So I've tried out for 3 shows, and I've never gotten on any of them. Flew to Chicago to take the Jeopardy test prior to the online version, got a pen to keep, went to a big tryout for Millionaire in Cleveland, passed the test, got an interview and was put in the pool but never chosen. The best was they did tryouts locally in Columbus for the weakest link. I did well on the test and got to play a version of the game with the staff. I was booked with them, paying for a trip to Hollywood, but my taping was replaced by a celebrity edition, and the trip canceled one day before I was supposed to leave. So I don't know about you guys, but this is the first story in the entire video where I felt sad reading it. I wasn't expecting that in a video like this. Poor OP. At least they got a pen. Anyway, next story. Okay, so slightly different, but I was on a UK kids TV show called Smart when I was about 10 years old. Each episode they go to a school, and one of the kids from that school was to draw something, and the hosts then show how to draw it properly. I was told to draw a chair, so I went to draw it, put my heart and soul into it, 3D and everything. When I took it to them, the host Mark Spate pretty much told me that it was too good of a drawing as he couldn't show me how to improve it. Went off to redraw a crap chair. The chair he showed me how to draw properly was barely as good as the chair I originally drew. Never actually seen the episode myself. Can't find it online anywhere, which I'm slightly annoyed about too. Once I got to secondary school, there was kids in the years above me that recognized me from it and would call me the smart kid. Also quoting one of the lines I had to say at the end of the segment I was on. I said, "I've got to go now, the invisible man is waiting for me." Next story. I was on Antiques Roadshow, technically not a game show. The experts move around before actual filming to take note of what were notable, and then were on their books, laptops, Google reference materials prior to filming the chosen items so that they knew exactly what to say and how much to appraise an item. There's a long gap between surveying what came in that day and the filming. On the show, it appears that some old lady just brought in a vase and the expert just knew the details from memory. Yes, they are experts and they know their stuff, but they won't know every detail without having had a look at their references. So once they say the vase you used as an umbrella stand for 30 years is actually a very rare vase from the Ming Dynasty and is worth $1 million, they quadruple fact-check that before filming. Next story. A friend of mine was on Deal or No Deal a few years back. He said he was told in advance when to continue playing and when to take the deal. He ended up with a briefcase worth something like $50,000 on the show, but actually ended up walking away with more than that. I'm sure my numbers are off, but the takeaway was that he won more on the show than what was broadcasted. He also said the show was filmed in one day, although on TV it made it seem like they ran out of time and had to split it across 2 episodes. As a side effect, he said he can always tell when the show gets rebroadcast because he'll get randos in his DMs. Next story. I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire 20 years ago. Meredith Vieira is gracious and charming. She sent contestants a personal handwritten card thanking us for appearing. And you cannot tell anyone the results until the show airs. This was about a month. I lived next door to my bank and they had the TV in the lobby playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire every afternoon. I went to withdraw some money the next day and everyone was amazed. When I got my check, the manager deposited in for me $25,000. Made enough to pay off my student loans, but I didn't. I just stopped working for a year. Well, folks, we are at the end of the mostly positive video. Thanks for watching, and feel free to comment. Have you ever been on a game show or anything like that? I was on the news once when I was a kid. Like they recorded my dad and I playing baseball. I never saw it. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. It really means a lot. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.